Hello, I'm Tom Gamble, one of the ministers at the Fairland Christian Church in Niles, Michigan, and we have been walking through the life of Joseph as outlined in the book of Genesis. This is day 5 of 10, and yesterday we learned that the famine that was coming upon Egypt was actually severe over all the earth. So Joseph's family, which included his dad Jacob and the rest of his family who lived back in Canaan, they were also dealing with the effects of the famine. Now, when Jacob heard that there was food in Egypt, he sent his sons there to buy food. But he didn't send all of his sons. Note verse 4. We're in chapter number 42. And verse 4 says to us this. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might happen to him. So here we have Jacob, and he keeps the youngest son of his wife Rachel, which is Benjamin, home with him. But he does send the other 10 sons of his to Egypt to buy food. This would include the 6 sons of Leah, the 2 sons of Bilhah, and the 2 sons of Zilpah. Now, actually the fact that he left Benjamin at home is an important point, both in this chapter and as you will see in the chapters to come. As the chapter continues, we learn that Joseph is the governor of the land in charge of selling Egypt's grain to those in need. And so remember, as we first started out, Joseph was wearing his the coat of, sometimes referred to as the coat of many colors. He's back here in this picture, not wearing that same coat, but it's still him, and I put the crown on him to signify that he is the governor here of the land, and he is the one distributing the food. Joseph's brothers, when they arrive, they bow down before their brother Joseph. Now, he recognizes them, but they do not recognize him. And Joseph remembers the dreams that he had had about 21 years previously, which foresaw that they would bow down to him. The Bible tells us that Joseph treated them like strangers and spoke roughly to them. Here's some of the dialogue that took place between Joseph and his brothers. We're going to start in chapter 42, beginning halfway through verse number 9. It says this, "And Joseph said to them, 'You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land.' They said to him, 'No, my lord. Your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies.' He said to them, 'No, it is the nakedness of the land that you have come to see.' And they said, 'We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father,'" right there, "'and one is no more.' But Joseph said to them, 'It is as I said to you, you are spies.'" After having put them all in custody for 3 days, and can you imagine the conversation that took place between those 10 brothers as they waited there for 3 days to find out what would happen to them? During that time, Joseph seized, after those 3 days, he seized upon their words of mentioning their younger brother, who was with their father Jacob. So he said to them in verses 18 through 20, Joseph said this. It said this, "On the 3rd day Joseph said to them, 'Do this and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody, and let the rest go and carry grain for the famine of your households, and bring your youngest brother to me. So your words will be verified, and you shall not die.' And they did so." Then Joseph's brothers began talking amongst themselves, believing they were being punished for what they did to Joseph some 2 decades before. Of course, they thought Joseph could not understand their conversation as there was an interpreter nearby. But Joseph understood, and the Bible says that he left to weep. After returning, he had his brother Simeon bound. And right here we have Simeon. And so Simeon was bound and put in custody. Simeon would wait until his brothers returned with Joseph's little brother Benjamin. Joseph gave orders that each of the bags of his brothers be filled with grain which they had come to get, and that their money be returned to them in those same bags. Of course, his brothers had no knowledge that that money was put back in those bags. On the return journey, one of them found the money in his bag. And after telling his brothers, verse 28 says this, "At this their hearts failed them, and they turned trembling to one another, saying, 'What is this that God has done to us?'" When they returned home, they told their father Jacob about the way that, and here's the words that they said, "The man, the Lord of the land, the man, the Lord of the land," which, unbeknownst to them, was their brother Joseph, the way that he had treated them, and about Simeon, and about the need to bring back Benjamin. The chapter then ends this way, starting at verse 35. It says, "As they emptied their sacks, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, 'You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more. And now you would take Benjamin. All this has come against me.' Then Reuben said to his father, 'Kill my 2 sons, if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you.' But he said, 'My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm should happen to him on the journey that you are to make, you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol.'" Sheol is the place of the spirits of the dead. At this time in history, the people knew of the afterlife, but they knew very little about it. Again, there is so much that we could pull from this chapter that could be applied to our lives. I've chosen to consider the words of Jacob's firstborn, Reuben, in verse number 22. I'm going to start in verse number 21. So Genesis 42, 21 and 22 say this, talking about the brothers. "They said to one another, 'In truth, we are guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us, and we did not listen. That is why this distress has come upon us.' And Reuben answered them, 'Did I not tell you not to sin against the boy? But you did not listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood.'" It had been over 20 years since they had done this sin against Joseph and then lied to their father about it. But their sin did not stay hidden forever. Although Dad doesn't know yet about what they did to Joseph and how they lied to him, he will. Remember, you can't keep your sin hidden forever. It will find you out. 2 references to show this. One, you may have noticed that we skipped over Genesis chapter 38. Read it. In that chapter, Judah had a sinful one-night stand. He thought no one knew about it, but he was in for a huge surprise. And the second one, in Numbers chapter 32, before God's people crossed over the Jordan to take the promised land, the tribes of Reuben and Gad wanted to stay on the other side of the Jordan and inhabit the land that was there. After speaking with Moses about it, the people of Reuben and Gad agreed to leave their wives and their little ones on the side of the Jordan that they were to live in. But the fighting men would cross over the Jordan and fight with God's people against those living in the land until all of the other tribes of Israel had their land of inheritance in the promised land. Note Moses' response to them. I'm in Numbers chapter number 32. Let me read this for you. Numbers 32, and we're going to start at verse number 20. The Bible says this. Moses said to them, if you will do this, if you will take up arms to go before the Lord for the war, and every armed man of you will pass over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before the Lord, then after that you shall return and be free of obligation to the Lord and to Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if you will not do so, behold, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Friends, your sin will find you out. Maybe in this lifetime, maybe not. But remember, it's never hidden from the Lord. Consider praying this day for the Lord to help you to resist temptation, so that you would not fall into temptation. On Monday, read ahead. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 43. We'll see you on Monday.